Social media addiction, a Jungian shadow work perspective. We scroll, and we scroll, and we scroll. 1,000 faces flash before our eyes. Perfect smiles, perfect lives. Moments curated, filtered, polished, until they shine brighter than reality itself. And yet, the more connected we are, the lonelier we feel. Carl Jung once warned, "The greatest danger is man's loss of soul." And isn't that what we see today? An entire generation staring into glowing screens, chasing validation through likes and followers, while the deeper self, the true self, is left starving. Every post we create is another mask, another persona carefully designed for approval. And every time we compare ourselves to someone else's highlight reel, we feed the shadow, that dark whisper that says, "You are not enough." This is not just technology, it is psychology. It is shadow work, happening every time you pick up your phone. So the question is not simply, am I spending too much time online? The question is deeper. What part of me is living there? And what part of me is slowly disappearing? Tonight, we will enter the Jungian lens to understand social media addiction, not as a habit, but as a mirror reflecting both our brightest desires and our darkest shadows. Because only by seeing what hides behind the screen can we begin to reclaim our soul. Persona 2.0, the digital mask. Carl Jung gave us the word persona, the mask we wear to meet the world. A necessary mask, a way of surviving, of belonging, of functioning in society. But in the digital age, that mask has multiplied. It has been sharpened, filtered, polished into something Jung himself could never have imagined, the digital persona. On social media, we do not show ourselves. We show the version of us we hope others will love. The carefully lit photo, the witty caption, the proof that we are happy, successful, desirable. And every time we post, we add another layer to the mask, until sometimes the mask feels more real than the face beneath it. But here lies the danger. The more we identify with the digital persona, the more we lose touch with the authentic self. We begin to believe that our worth is measured in likes, shares, comments. Numbers on a screen replace the voice of the soul. And when the numbers drop, so does our sense of self. We feel invisible, rejected, forgotten, not because we are unloved in truth, but because the mask was not applauded. Jung warned that the persona, when mistaken for the true self, becomes a prison. And in our age, social media has become the most seductive prison of all. So ask yourself, when you scroll through your own feed, are you seeing your life or your mask? When you post, are you expressing your soul or protecting it behind a filter? The digital persona is not evil, but it is fragile. And if you forget that it is only a mask, you may one day look in the mirror and realize you no longer know who you really are. Because the more you live for the persona, the more your true self fades into shadow. Projection, what we see in others online. Carl Jung taught us a hard truth. What we cannot face in ourselves, we project onto others. And nowhere is this more obvious than on social media. When you scroll through your feed, you think you're looking at other people's lives. But in reality, you are staring into a mirror that reflects your own hidden desires, your own fears, your own shadow. That instant jealousy you feel when someone announces a promotion, it is not about them. It is about the part of you that feels stuck, the ambition you've buried, the unlived potential pressing against the walls of your soul. That irritation when someone posts another flawless selfie. It is not just annoyance. It is the disowned part of you that longs to be seen as beautiful, worthy, desired, but never felt allowed to admit it. That anger when someone expresses an opinion you despise. Look deeper. Often, it is the very trait you've repressed in yourself, now appearing on their screen so you can finally confront it. Jung called this process projection, and on social media, projection multiplies. Every swipe, every click, every reaction is an opportunity for the shadow to reveal itself. But here lies the danger. If you do not recognize projection, you will blame the world for what lives inside you. You will hate others for carrying the traits you cannot bear to face in yourself. And in doing so, you will miss the gift. Because projection is not punishment. It is a signal. A way the unconscious tries to show you the parts of yourself you have ignored. So the next time you feel that flash of envy, that sting of shame, that rush of anger as you scroll, pause. Ask not, why are they like this? But what is this showing me about me? Because behind every projection is a piece of your own shadow waiting to be reclaimed. And social media, for all its illusions, has become the largest stage on which our shadows play. The shadow of validation. Why we crave likes and followers. Why do we keep coming back? Why do we refresh the screen again and again, waiting for that little red notification to appear? It seems harmless, just numbers, just metrics. But Jung would say, this craving runs much deeper. At its core, it is about validation. The ego's hunger to be seen, to be affirmed, to be told, you exist, you matter, you are enough. Every like is a small dose of recognition. Every comment, a mirror reflecting the image we hope to believe. Every follower gained, a whisper to the shadow inside us. Maybe now, you are worthy. But here lies the trap. When our value is tied to validation, we hand our soul over to the crowd. We let strangers decide whether we feel beautiful today, whether our thoughts have meaning, whether our lives are worth living out loud. And Jung warned of this inflation. The ego swells with borrowed approval, but inside, the self grows emptier. The more you chase validation, the further you drift from your own center. That is why no number is ever enough. 10 likes become 50. 50 must become 500. And still the shadow whispers, not enough, not yet, try again. Because the shadow of validation is bottomless. It feeds on comparison. It thrives on insecurity. And the more you obey it, the more power it takes. But here is the paradox. The validation you seek outside is the very recognition you withhold from yourself. The love you wait for in notifications is the love your soul longs to give itself. So ask yourself, what part of me is so hungry that I keep feeding on digital crumbs? What part of me has forgotten that worth does not need to be measured, scored, or displayed? Because until you answer that, the cycle continues, and the shadow of validation will keep you scrolling in search of a wholeness that can only be found within. Collective possession, when archetypes take over online. Carl Jung warned of a strange danger, not just that an individual can be overtaken by the shadow, but that entire groups, even whole societies, can fall under the spell of the unconscious. He called this possession by archetype, and nowhere is this possession more visible today than on social media. Scroll for just a few minutes and you will see it. The archetypes are everywhere, alive, pulsing, playing out their eternal dramas through millions of screens. The hero archetype emerges when someone calls out injustice, rallying followers into a digital crusade. Sometimes noble, sometimes inflated, but always fueled by the energy of battle. The trickster archetype thrives in memes, trolls, and disinformation. It confuses, disrupts, turns truth into parody and parody into truth. It laughs at the chaos it creates, and millions share it without ever realizing they are being played. The shadow archetype explodes in cancel culture, in mob outrage, in waves of digital shaming. It is not just anger at wrongdoing, it is the collective darkness unleashed, hungry for a target, feeding on destruction, and the great mother archetype too finds its place. In communities that nurture, protect, offer comfort to the lonely, guidance to the lost, love to those who feel unseen. But here lies the paradox. When archetypes move through us unconsciously, we lose ourselves in them. We are no longer individuals. We are voices in a chorus, soldiers in a mob, characters in a myth we do not even know we are living. This is why social media feels so overwhelming. Because it is not just people talking. It is the collective unconscious speaking, loud, raw, unfiltered. And if you are not awake to it, you may mistake possession for passion. You may believe you are acting freely when in truth, an archetype has taken the wheel. So the question is not only what archetypes am I seeing online, but also which ones are moving through me. Because until you see the archetypes clearly, you are not using social media. It is using you. Individuation in the digital age. Carl Jung believed that the deepest calling of the human soul is the journey of individuation, to become whole, to become real, to live as the self rather than the mask. But how do we walk this path? In a world where so much of life is lived through screens, where the pull of likes and followers is constant, relentless, inescapable. The answer is not to abandon technology completely, nor is it to surrender fully to it. The answer is awareness. To individuate in the digital age means first to recognize the persona 2.0, to know that the images you post are a mask, useful, maybe even necessary, but never the whole of who you are. And to remember always that behind the mask lives a soul that cannot be captured in pixels. It means second, to reclaim your projections. When envy rises as you scroll, pause and ask, what unlived part of me is being shown here? When anger flares at another's words, ask, what shadow in me is trying to speak? Turn the mirror back on yourself and you will find the gold hidden in the shadow. It means third, to free yourself from the shadow of validation. Yes, 1,000 likes may feel sweet, but wholeness cannot be counted. It is born when you begin to trust your own worth, whether the world applauds you or not. And finally, to remember that even in the chaos of the collective, you are not just an echo. You are a voice, a soul, a unique spark of consciousness that no algorithm can replicate. To individuate is to step off the stage of performance and return to the living, breathing mystery of your own life. It is to see that social media is not reality, but a shadow play. And while the shadows dance on the wall, the true task is to turn inward and awaken to the self that has always been there, watching, waiting, inviting you home. So the question remains, will you keep living through the mask of the feed, or will you dare to walk the Jungian path of individuation, to be fully, fiercely, authentically yourself, even in the digital age? Because in the end, that is the only freedom worth chasing. While we've traveled together through the hidden landscapes of our digital lives, we saw how the digital persona can become a mask, a glittering reflection that hides the soul. We explored how projection fills our feeds with the shadows of our own fears and desires. We uncovered the shadow of validation, that endless craving for likes and followers that never truly satisfies. We witnessed how archetypes possess the collective online, turning platforms into stages for heroes, tricksters, and mobs. And finally, we discovered what it means to seek individuation in the digital age. To live as more than a mask, to reclaim the soul behind the screen. Carl Jung reminded us that the task of life is not to be perfect, but to be whole. And wholeness requires honesty, with our shadow, with our desires, with the ways technology tempts us to forget who we are. So let me turn the question back to you. When you scroll, when you post, when you compare yourself online, what do you notice? Do you see your mask, your shadow, or perhaps a glimpse of the self that longs to emerge? I invite you to share your reflections in the comments, because your story, your honest struggle with social media, your insights, your lessons, may be the mirror that helps someone else break free. And if this journey has spoken to you, if it has opened even one small window onto your own digital shadow, then please like this video, subscribe for more Jungian explorations, and share it with someone who might also feel trapped in the glow of their screen. Because the truth is, social media is not the enemy, but it can never be your soul. And until you remember that difference, you will remain hungry, scrolling for something that can only be found within. So tonight, when you put your phone down. Pause. Breathe. Listen. Because the deepest connection you are searching for is not in the feed. It is in the timeless self that has been waiting for you all along.